The restaurant fell silent the moment the billionaire stood up. Sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the luxury seaside hotel, turning the marble floors golden. Hundreds of eyes followed the elderly billionaire as he stared at a stack of documents in front of him. His face had gone pale. His hands trembled. Something was terribly wrong. And at that exact moment, a single father carrying a tray of coffee made a decision that could cost him his job, his reputation, and the only income keeping his little family alive. If you believe kindness can change lives and that everyone deserves a second chance, take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs inspiration today, and subscribe to Single Dad Empire for more powerful stories that touch the heart. No one in that room knew that within the next hour, a poor waiter and one of the richest men in the world would become connected forever. 36-year-old Rowan Mercer had never imagined his life would lead him here. Years earlier, he had dreamed of becoming a language teacher. He loved books, cultures, and learning how people communicated across the world. But dreams often lose battles against reality. After losing his wife, Alina, to a sudden illness, Rowan became both mother and father to his 8-year-old daughter, Iris. Hospital bills swallowed their savings. Debt followed. Opportunities disappeared. Every decision became a calculation between rent, groceries, and school supplies. The luxury hotel restaurant where Rowan worked wasn't glamorous from his perspective. While wealthy guests enjoyed ocean views and expensive meals, Rowan spent long days carrying trays, cleaning tables, and smiling through exhaustion. Still, he never complained. Every morning before school, Iris would sit at their tiny kitchen table drawing colorful pictures while Rowan prepared breakfast. Their apartment was small, but it was filled with warmth. On the refrigerator hung dozens of her drawings, castles, sunsets, flowers, and portraits of her father wearing a superhero cape. To Iris, he wasn't a waiter. He was her hero. That particular morning seemed ordinary. The sky was bright and clear. Tourists filled the city streets. Luxury cars lined the entrance of the hotel. Staff members whispered excitedly because a famous billionaire was scheduled to visit. His name was Victor Hale. Victor Hale wasn't just wealthy. He was a global business legend. His companies employed tens of thousands of people. Financial news channels followed his every move. Yet despite his success, he had a reputation for being humble and respectful. By noon, the restaurant buzzed with anticipation. Victor arrived accompanied by executives, assistants, and a translator named Damien Cross. Rowan noticed something unusual immediately. Although Victor was fluent in several languages, age had begun affecting his hearing. During important meetings abroad, he often relied on translators to help communicate complex discussions. Damien seemed confident, polished, and professional. But Rowan had spent years studying languages before life changed his plans. And within minutes, he noticed troubling inconsistencies. As drinks were served and documents exchanged, Rowan overheard conversations while moving between tables. At first he assumed he had misunderstood. But the more he listened, the more uncomfortable he became. The translator wasn't accurately translating. Small details were being altered. Numbers were changed. Conditions were softened. Warnings were omitted. Every alteration seemed tiny on its own. Together, they created a completely different story. Rowan's heart pounded. He wanted to ignore it. He needed this job. The hotel had strict rules about employees interfering with private meetings. One complaint from a wealthy client could end his employment instantly. But as he continued serving nearby tables, the situation became impossible to ignore. The billionaire was preparing to sign documents worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And the translator appeared to be manipulating the information. Rowan tried convincing himself someone else would notice. No one did. The executives seemed focused on presentations. Assistants reviewed schedules. Managers worried about appearances. Meanwhile, the translator continued speaking calmly while quietly reshaping reality. A familiar thought entered Rowan's mind. It was the same thought that had guided him through years of struggle. What kind of example am I setting for my daughter if I stay silent when I know something is wrong? He remembered Iris's smile. He remembered the promises he made beside his wife's hospital bed. Raise her with courage. Teach her honesty. Show her what integrity looks like. Suddenly, the answer became clear. Fear still existed. But courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing the right thing despite it. Victor Hale reached for a pen. The room held its breath. And Rowan stepped forward. The tray in his hands shook slightly. Several executives frowned immediately. Hotel management stared in disbelief. A waiter was approaching one of the most powerful businessmen on earth during an active meeting. This was unthinkable. Rowan's pulse thundered in his ears. Every instinct screamed at him to stop. Instead, he continued walking. Then he spoke words that instantly changed everything. Your translator is lying. The silence that followed felt endless. Every conversation stopped. Every eye turned toward him. Damien's confident expression vanished for a split second before returning. Victor slowly lowered his pen. No one moved. No one breathed. The billionaire looked directly at Rowan. His eyes weren't angry. They were curious. Hotel managers rushed forward, ready to remove the waiter immediately. But Victor raised a hand. Everyone froze. He wanted to hear more. Rowan carefully explained what he had overheard. He pointed out specific phrases that had been translated incorrectly. He described omitted financial risks and altered contractual obligations. The room became increasingly tense. Executives began comparing documents. Assistants checked notes. Questions started flying. Damien's calm demeanor cracked. For the first time, uncertainty appeared on his face. Victor ordered an independent translator to be brought in immediately. The verification process took nearly 40 minutes. 40 minutes that felt like 4 years. Rowan stood quietly near the back of the room, convinced he would either be fired or escorted out. Then the results arrived. Everything he had said was true. The translator had deliberately manipulated critical sections of the agreement. Millions of dollars were at risk. Hidden clauses favored outside investors. Legal protections had been weakened. Victor Hale had been moments away from signing one of the worst deals of his career. Shock spread through the room. Several executives looked sick. Others stared at Rowan with disbelief. The man who had uncovered the deception wasn't a lawyer, consultant, or financial expert. He was a waiter. A single father carrying coffee. Damien was removed from the meeting immediately. Investigations began. Lawyers were contacted. The deal was halted. And Victor Hale quietly sat alone for several minutes staring out at the ocean. Eventually, he asked to speak privately with Rowan. The restaurant emptied around them. Afternoon sunlight reflected across the water outside. For the first time, the billionaire truly looked at the man who had saved him. He saw worn shoes. Tired eyes. Calloused hands. And a quiet dignity that wealth could never buy. Victor learned about Iris. He learned about Alina. He learned about the years of sacrifice, long shifts, and sleepless nights. Most importantly, he learned that Rowan had expected nothing in return. He simply couldn't watch someone be deceived. That realization affected Victor more deeply than anyone expected. Because despite all his success, he had spent years surrounded by people who wanted something from him. Money. Influence. Access. But Rowan wanted none of those things. He chose honesty even when it threatened his livelihood. And that kind of character was priceless. Weeks later, life began changing in ways Rowan never imagined. Victor funded a scholarship program in Alina's memory. He helped Rowan return to university and complete the language education degree he had abandoned years earlier. He ensured Iris received educational opportunities that would allow her talents to flourish. But the greatest gift wasn't financial. It was belief. For the first time since losing his wife, Rowan felt seen, respected, valued. Months later, he stood inside a classroom teaching students from diverse backgrounds. Languages filled the room. Dreams filled the air. Every evening he still returned home to Iris. Their apartment eventually became a house. The refrigerator remained covered with drawings. Only now there were even more. One picture showed a teacher standing beside a smiling little girl beneath a bright daytime sky. Across the top, Iris had written 4 simple words. "My dad saved someone." And perhaps that was the most beautiful truth of all. Because sometimes heroes don't wear uniforms. Sometimes they carry trays. Sometimes they struggle to pay bills. Sometimes they walk into danger knowing they might lose everything. Yet they choose courage anyway. Before this story ends, we have a special request. Comment below, "Honesty changes lives," if you believe doing the right thing is always worth it, even when it's difficult. Years later, Victor Hale would tell audiences around the world that one of the smartest business decisions he ever made was listening to a waiter. But Rowan never saw himself as extraordinary. He simply saw himself as a father trying to live by values he hoped his daughter would inherit. And in doing so, he changed multiple lives forever. If this story touched your heart, inspired you, or reminded you that integrity still matters in today's world, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Single Dad Empire. Your support helps us continue bringing powerful stories of hope, courage, sacrifice, and second chances to people everywhere. Because sometimes one honest voice is enough to stop a disaster. And sometimes the person who saves the day is the one everyone overlooked.